Hello, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a tutorial for the continuous join. So I was saying that you would just have it here ready to go, and then you would just grab it, get it all done. I like to leave a lot of extra because it's kind of annoying whenever it comes a little unraveled. It doesn't unravel the whole row, thankfully. It just kind of makes the corner a little ugly. And so let's say that did happen. Let's say I pulled on it really hard and it is acting like it would come undone. So even if you yank at this, as long as you're not breaking the yarn, you don't have to worry about it coming unraveled because it gets caught in the way that we were weaving itself in. And so if this happens, all you gotta do is just kind of bulk up this corner, because see, it's not connecting anymore. It's a little disjointed. And so all you gotta do is take your yarn, find where that chain is, and then just kind of get it back in there. And then bing bang boom, you fixed it in one step. And so back to the main thing, because that was just a little aside. What I do whenever I'm starting the row is I have a couple of extra chains just to get it a little higher up so it's not pulling down on itself. 2 or 3 is fine. Since this is mostly single crochet, you can just do 2, but 3 works just as well. All you gotta do is get it in there as normal, do your single crochet, and then bang bang boom, you're ready on that line, and you can just keep going as normal. Oops. And you've got your row started. And so that's how you would do it if you were already halfway through a project. So you can start doing this technique at any time. So for the first couple rows of this, I didn't think to do it, so I still have a couple of these, but by like the 4th row, I decided I'm going to do it this way, and it's been a lifesaver because I can't imagine weaving in 2 ends per every single row with single crochet, and it's 13 inches for half the hexagon, so that's just an insane amount of work that I've saved myself from doing. So once you've got the row started, it's just as normal. So what I'm going to do is teach you how to actually start it. So for now I'm going to not use my tension ring just because I'm used to chaining the old-fashioned way. I'm still getting used to the tension ring. And for the amount of chains you do in the beginning, it's really up to you. It's more personal preference. I like to do a lot just because I don't like to get lost whenever I'm getting everything going. And you can't really see, but I am closing off the circle right now. And so now that you have your little circle ready, to make it easy, and what I did with this one is I just did the very center part as if I were making a regular granny stitch hexagon cardigan. So it's just 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, until you have 6 sides. So start by chaining 3, and then you'll do a double crochet. And this is all standard, like there's tons and tons of tutorials for getting your first little circle done. And then another double crochet. And that's my first side, because that first chain 3 counted as 1. We all know that. And then you chain 2. Some people chain 3. I personally like chain 2 because it doesn't have as much of a holy look, and plus the way that I do my corners is set up better for chain 2. So I'll show you as we go along. 2, and then the 3rd one right next to it, and then chain 2, and then 3 double crochets, 2, and 2. Chain 2, 3 double crochets. This is going to feel very familiar if you've already made the granny stitch cardigan before. So I'm just including this part just for posterity, just in case there's a handful of people who've never made the regular granny stitch cardigan and want to just jump into something a little more complicated. but I of course would recommend you know how to do the granny stitch and how to start the granny stitch before you get going with a project like this. But, I mean, we only live once, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, I need 2 more sides. Chain 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, oops, 2, and 3. And that's my 5th side, so I'm about to finish this row with a chain to the last 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so now we count one more time, just in case. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's very cool, very cool. We didn't mess up. So now to finish my row, I chain 2, slip stitch into the top of the 3rd chain. It should be here. It's hard to see with the freaking black yarn, so give me some grace, give me some grace. And then you slip stitch it there, and so now that's your first row done. So instead of cutting it off at this point, what we're going to do is, after we've slip stitched it into the other corner space, I like to do 2 or 3 chains. You'll kind of pick which one you like more. We'll do 3. How about that? And then I grab a little bit extra just so it has less of a chance of coming unraveled. And then if you really want it to be secure, you can just kind of do a little knot here, but nothing that you can't just pull out. So maybe just like the little bunny ear fold, so bunny ear, wrap and fold, kind of how we used to tie our shoes. And then that way whenever you pull any of these little loops, it just comes undone. But now we have our first little row of a hexagon. So we're going to take our second color. The way that I like to space out my colors, and this is important in my opinion, is I don't like the colors to line up in the same corner. So if this is my black corner, that's the only color that's going to be in that corner. And then another thing I like to do is I don't like the next row to be in the very next corner either, because sometimes with mosaic crochet and any kind of pattern that you're doing, sometimes for the corners you have to do a little bit of freestyling. And I would rather freestyle on a corner that I know is proper and good rather than a corner that kind of has some other stuff going on. And so what I like to do, if I'm doing 2 colors, at least having 1 corner in between. But if it's just 2 colors, you might as well just do it on the opposite side. So there's 3 in between for each side. It will make a little bit more sense as we go on, but do it however you want, but I recommend having at least a regular corner in between your color corners, and it'll make more sense in a little bit. So what we're going to do, if this corner is over here, we're going to start with this corner for our other color. So grab your little color, and then this will be the only other end you would have to weave in, just the very beginning of each color and the very end of the garment. So a total of 4 ends to weave in. Not very bad compared to, you know. So you're going to get your new yarn color, make your little slip knot, get your hook in there, get it ready to go. Find the front side, find the opposite side from the first color you used. Look up in here and see how there's those 2 chains. There's the first one and the second one. We're going to work into the second one, the side that's closer to the side we're working toward. And the reason for that is I use the other chain to finish the row, so it makes it nice and even. So I just do a standing single crochet. Not everyone does it like that. I just kind of prefer it. I think it's easier, and I'm mostly going off of the number of stitches. And so with single crochet you can kind of get away with doing it like this. But anyway, and so your first 2 rows are just going to be regular rows with mosaic. You can't do any pattern yet because there's no pattern to go down. So with this, you'll just do your regular single crochet back loop only. 2, 3, 4. And so if your first row was 3 double crochets and then chain 2, your next row is going to be 5 and then chain 2 because you're increasing by 1 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, chain 2, that's our new corner, and go into the next one. I know that you can just chain 1 in the corners and then just work both of the next corner things into the same loop, but I find that that gives really big holes, and so if you're into the holy look, then by all means go crazy, but I think just chaining 2 and then working each stitch into its own loop works best for me. And whenever I first started this technique, instead of chaining 2 for the corners, so if I were doing a row of just a single crochet, I would do single crochet, then double crochet, then single crochet to make my corner. And you can do it that way too. And that way it completely eliminates the holes. But I think if you're just doing chain 2 and then working into it, I don't really notice the holes all that much. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is my 5th single crochet. Chain 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and then this is where it gets a little freestyly because we've hit the part where we did our other little stuff. So we have our 5 and then our chain 2. And this part gets a little dicey because it's your corner that you've made all this happen. So it gets a little weird simply because you're trying to make it work with some stitches that aren't really normally there. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then 1 and 2, and then now we have a couple more rows. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then chain 2, and then finish your row. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then to end your row, chain 2, and slip stitch into the top of that. And whenever the rows actually get started, that gets a little bit less annoying because you're actually able to just slip stitch into these like chains that you're making behind, and it's not as ugly. You can definitely see that this is where that corner was for right now, but I promise as it gets going it sorts itself out. So now that we have this row done, I like to get a little bit extra, as I said, and whenever you're on your first couple rows you really don't have to do this, but whenever you get really going, whenever you're turning it a lot, it does want to come unraveled from itself a little bit, so just kind of make a little knot. Just a little, you know, something you can pull the corner of. We know how to make knots, right? Okay, I got a little bit of a better camera angle for this next row. If you couldn't see very well in the previous row, I essentially did my first row just as a regular granny stitch, and then rather than cutting off the end, I just left it back here and then started my next row on the opposite side, so 3 sides away from it. Our corners are nice and pointy, and we're ready to get started on our third row. The way that it kind of feels is it feels like it's going to be leaning backwards, but that's just because it's leaning at a diagonal. And so you're going to find your chain 2 for your corner in the previous row, which for me it's right here. And then you're just going to work into that. I just do a standing single crochet rather than slip stitching and then chaining 1. And then, wouldn't you know it, you're already started. So, since there's 5 stitches on this row, you're going to do 2, go in the middle, or 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, there's 7, my bad. Since there's 7 on this row, because there was 3, then 5, then this one will have 7. So you'll do 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to double crochet, and you can either do double crochet or you can do an extended double crochet, but try to, I know that right here it kind of got a little bit messed up because, you know, it happens, but you pretty much just have to count in here, find that middle one, and then work from there. Since it's the very beginning, I give myself some grace, because I would rather continue on and have it sort itself out and then have one where it, you know, has a few mistakes on it, rather than starting over and over and over just because my first couple rows are not as clean as I want. So that's what that technique looks like. And so you'll just do 3 more to make it even. 2 and 3. Bang, bang, boom, that's your first side done. Wouldn't you know it? Look how cool that looks. Maybe I'll get my light a little further away so it's not as glaring. And then you'll chain 2. Find your second chain here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm way over here. 3. Here, maybe I'll try it like this. My arm all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, and then this one's a little bit easier to see the middle. So you'll just go into the middle one, and it would be even easier to see if it wasn't black yarn, but ce qui sera sera. And then do a double crochet. If you find that your corners start to bend down, start doing an extended double. Or if you find that they're good and loose, you don't have to do it. It's really up to you. I like the treble crochet, but I think it calls a little bit too much attention to itself. It's very thick, whereas the extended double is a little bit flatter. So that's my third one. Chain 2, and then same thing. 1, 2, 3. Double crochet down the middle one. And then 1, 2, and 3. And then always make sure you're skipping the one behind it. This isn't quite just a mosaic crochet tutorial. You can find a ton of really good ones on Tina's channel. She's amazing, and her laugh is infectious, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful crocheter. So if you want to learn the mosaic stitch in general, definitely watch one of her videos. So this is what it's looking like right now. So I just finished my 3 on this side. I'm going to chain 2. And this is a side with you know, the other color's corner, so it's going to take a little bit of brain power compared to the other ones. So I just did my chain 2, and like I said, because you on your previous row you do a chain 2 and then slip stitch, that means that the first one on this next row is going to be deceptively still on this side of all this stuff. So this is the first one of the row, so 1, and then it's even greater whenever you get going, because if you kind of mess up somewhere in here, you can just use one of the stitches that you skipped to make the number even again, so it's really forgiving of mistakes. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So we'll do 2 and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So 1, 2. And I just kind of find a spot that works, preferably not one that's pointing toward the front, and it usually works out. And if it doesn't, you just kind of have to freestyle a little bit. That's the only punishment you get with this kind of stitch, is if you mess up, it just takes a little bit of finagling to get it back to what you want it to be doing, but it's not the end of the world if you mess up on a row. In fact, I've messed up on this other half of it many times, and you really can't tell. Especially because you're working just back loops only, that hides a lot of sins. So as long as you make sure that your counting is where it should be, and all your sides have about the same numbers on them, that's really all you gotta do. 1, 2, and 3. And then chain 2. And then 1, 2, and 3. Double crochet down the front panel in the middle. And to give you a little bit of a better understanding, it makes more sense with these viewable colors, but you can see these little front facing stitches right here, and that's what we're working into. And so this is your 1, 2, and 3. You'll pick the middle one, and then do your double crochet or extended double, however you need to do it. And then make sure you're skipping this one whenever you move on. So you're not working into this stitch, you're working into the one right next to it, because the one that you skipped is the one that you did the front post double crochet. So if you use that stitch as well, it would give you too many extensions in the middle of your row, which we don't want, unless we screwed up somewhere and we needed that stitch for something. Alright, and this is the last side. So we got 1, 2, 3, double crochet in the middle, and then 1, 2. See, I accidentally worked into that stitch when I shouldn't have. Yep, that's exactly what I did. So, oopsie. See, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It didn't really look weird. So 1, 2, and 3 is actually over here. 2, 3. And then chain 2. And so what I was mentioning before with this technique is once you get to this point, you don't have to find the top of the chain 3 and do all that nonsense. Since you already have kind of a thing going back here and there's a nice cute little gap for you, here's what I do. I just slip stitch into that part and then get it out of there. And it looks fine. And in fact, you're not disrupting this row at all. And so the future rows, whenever you're getting to this corner, are going to be a lot less difficult. So that's what it looks like now. As you can see, those parts where I kind of flubbed it a little bit in the first row, they're already kind of settling down. If you really pull it, you can see that those holes are a little bigger, but for the most part it just kind of lays how it's supposed to lay. So we're back on a colored row. We just finished the black row. So we start our row, we're ready to go. We find our 2 chains up here, 2 chains, and then we work into the second one that's closer to the row we're going toward. And then you do your double crochet or your single crochet to get onto the row. So we're going to want to do 1, nothing, 1, nothing. So your corner one's just going to be a back loop single crochet. Then, and as you can see if you look really close, a lot of these aren't facing the right direction. So it's going to take a little bit of freestyling. And so what you do is you look at them and you say, okay, that looks like 1 right there, that looks like 1, that looks like the corner one. And so if you're trying to find your way into working into one of these, all you gotta do is find the one that looks the most like it's below this one. So that looks about here. So even though there's not exactly a perfect stitch right there, we're just going to go into the one that feels right. And for us it's that. So you're going to yarn over, go into that spot that feels right, pull it out, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And there it is. And then you'll go into this one, and then you'll go into the one right next to it, right next to that front post double crochet in the black, and then pull that through, and then you've got your pattern started. And so like I said, even though this one wasn't exactly the right spot for it, it's fine. And then for this black one, we're going to go behind it, and then the front post double crochet in the one right next to it, and then a back loop only single crochet, and then a front post double crochet. And then to end the row, it's a back loop only single crochet. And then you chain 2, and that is going to get you started on your next row. And then you'll do your back loop single crochet, then your front post double crochet. Sometimes they're a little tight, but you'll get in there. Just kind of wiggle it around and it'll eventually start working with you a little bit. So this is what it's looking like thus far. That one realistically could have been put a little bit more in the corner, but it's fine. And then we're doing the same thing over here. So our back loop only single crochet, and then our front post double right next to it, bing bang boom, back post only single crochet, front post double crochet, single crochet back loop only, double crochet front loop, and then single crochet back loop only, and then chain 2, and then we'll go right back into our single crochet back loop only, and then front post double crochet, single crochet back loop only, making sure I have my line straight, and then try and guess what the next one is. No, I'm just kidding. It's a front post double crochet. And then back loop only, single crochet. We just did our single crochet right above this one that actually is our double crochet from the previous row, and then we will go back to business as usual, doing the front post double crochet in every other one, and then the single crochet back loop only in those other ones. Very simple row. A lot of the rows are pretty simple once you get started, and you have 6 sides to commit it to memory, so it doesn't take too much brain power. You skip one, do the next one. I accidentally did not pull from my center pull of this colored yarn like a dingus, so I'm having to deal with it. So what we're doing here is we're skipping, let me find the one. Yeah, we're skipping this one. We're working into this next one, and then we're chaining 2. And then, like I said, this one, part of this first stitch of the next row is deceptively still in front of this extra thing we have going. So don't forget about that little guy. He tends to get forgotten from time to time. So that's 1. And then luckily with this row, the next one is a front post double crochet. So you really don't have to worry about this going on back here. So you just find the one that's 2 away from this one. So for this one that's right here. And then you grab it, give it some love, and then wouldn't you know it, you can't even see that that's one of the color corner. So then you skip this stitch, you can't really see it because it's black yarn, and then you single crochet in the next one. You try to use your tension ring that you got for Christmas that you keep forgetting about, and then you double crochet into the one next to the long boy in the middle of the row. Bing, bang, boom. Then you get the one behind it. Then you do in front of it. Then behind. Then in front. And this one I wasn't as clean, so I'm gonna just freestyle it. 1, 2, somewhere in here. See, and that works out. And then you finish off the row, chain 2, start the next row, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet along the original extension from the previous row, and then a double crochet and the one right next to it, and then single crochet and double crochet, right there. Kind of a corner looking one is what I'm using. There you go, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, double crochet. That one's a little bit more clearly on the line instead of in the corner. There you go. Then single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, like I said, some of these are a little tighter than others, and that's just because of your own tension. Sometimes you yank it tight, and sometimes you don't. Okay, then you've got our double crochet there, and then we're going to do our last single crochet of the row. Pull it through, chain 2, and as I mentioned before, rather than trying to find the top of your single crochet and doing it that way, you already have a little bit of extra yarn back here from whenever you were moving it from down here to up here. So that's what I like to work into, where I like to seal it off, because that way it doesn't disturb the row and it makes it a little bit easier to know what to do during the next row. And then I like to chain a couple, so it has a little bit lower of a chance of coming unwound a little bit, and then take a little bit of extra yarn, bunny ear tie it so it's secure but not in a really crazy knot that you can't undo, and then that's what we have so far. If you find whenever you're going along that your cardigan is starting to make more of this A shape rather than this L shape, that's because this is for a candle, that's because you are putting too many extensions on your corners. So if you're chaining 3, you have a higher chance of it making that A shape. And then the other way is if it's kind of making this straight shape on this side, that's usually because your rows are too tight, and so whenever you're doing your double crochets, try going up to a extended double or even a triple crochet, and that will help some of it. And you can also add more chains in the corners to also make it go back to the L shape. And so there's lots of ways to fix that without frogging. I'm someone who would much prefer to fix rather than frog, so I think I've maybe frogged one thing ever. Everything else I just either try to make it work or I just drop the project. So this is what this row looks like. It's starting to make a little bit of the shape, and we'll get started on the next row. So you're going to pull this taut to start working. And as you can see, we're going to chain a couple just to get us up to the height where we need to go. And then we're going to look in this corner here, see where our 2 chains are, and we're going to work into the one closer to the row. And then we'll get going on our easy peasy row, because it's just back loop only, single crochet. So you can just whip this one out lickety freaking split. Whoops, I did not grab the right part of the yarn right there. So 1, 2, well, that's technically 3, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So there should be 11 stitches per row, which is a good odd number. Chain 2, 11 back loop only, single crochet on the next row. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not using my tension ring, hang on. I keep forgetting I have it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Chain 2. Same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 2. And remember that first one on the row is still on this side. So 1, tuck that away, and you're able to clearly see. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so we're going to skip this little guy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Chain 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 2. And then, like I said, there's this little guy back here, and so I just slip stitch through the whole thing, not even splitting it, just grabbing the whole thing, slip stitching. That's all. Boom. Chain 3 just to get it a little bit of extra leeway. 2, 3. Pull it out. Bunny ears. Get it on there. And that's another row. Alright, so with this row it's a little bit different. You're going to go ahead and get started in your chain 2 little guy over here. 1, 2, and go into this one. So your corners have an extra one on this row, simply because where it would normally go down would be in the corner, and with this pattern I didn't want to do a diagonal line, I wanted them to all stay as squares. So that's why that one's a little bit different than the previous rows. But it's not no big deal. I keep forgetting I have a tension ring. Okay, and here is a back loop only, and here is a front post, or front loop double crochet I guess they should be called, not front post. One, and then one in the front. One in the back. And one in the front. And then two. Chain two. One, two. And then back to what we was doing before. One. Oh, here's that factory knot. So this is a perfect time to show you how with back loop only crochet it hides all of that. So what we're going to do is just do it as normal, and then try not to have this pull in front at all. So you want to keep it tucked behind, and then it stays back there. It never tries to fight with you after that. It's like, oh, you want me back here? That's cool. I'm fine with that. It just lays down and takes it. So that's where they are, and you notice that they're also just kind of pointing down. So they stay pretty flush up against it, and then as you're working it just gets completely covered. So you never have to worry about those unsightly factory knots either. Whenever you're finishing your project, you get to just finish. So back to where we were going, which was just our regular pattern for this section of the cardigan. And back loop, then front loop double crochet, then back loop, and this, one, two, one, two, two, three, four, and five. One, two, one, two. I didn't pull that one right. 1, 2. Two, three, four, five, one, two, chain two, 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two, three, four, five, chain two, or two back loop only single crochets and then chain two, 1, 2, 2 back loop only single crochets, then you find the one right next to the vertical line from the last colored row, work into that, and then you just do every other one. Mm-hmm. Chain two, and then as usual you find this guy back here and just slip stitch into that whole thing. And then you do a couple chains to seal the deal. Do a bunny ear knot to keep it secure but not too secure. Perfect. And then now we have another row done. As you can see, it's still keeping its shape. Still looks like an L. Alright, in closing, this is what it looks like so far after the few rows that I showed you. I of course would not mind at all making a full tutorial on the whole pattern, but the main idea for this tutorial was to show you how to do this continuous join in the back. So I hope I was able to show that to you, even with my difficult camera recording skills. In truth, I usually crochet either on the couch or in bed. This is one of my first times ever crocheting at my desk at all. So it was very new to me, and again I apologize for not always having the best camera angle because I kept wanting to hold it closer and closer to my face, and well, you saw. So hopefully in my next video I will have that issue sorted, so I hope you will catch that one, and I hope that you're able to use this technique in your arsenal for your future projects. Thank you for watching.